Hello, and welcome to Data for All, a quest for digital autonomy, a podcast in which we bring you closer to the topic of municipal data sovereignty. This season of the podcast revolves around sustainable data solutions for citizens and companies. Looking at situations across Europe, we present facts, approaches, and reflections on how we can better understand and use data for the public good.
Data for All. A quest for digital autonomy. A podcast from the Heinrich-Böll Foundation, Schleswig-Holstein.
First of all, welcome Leon, welcome Lasse. It's great that you have taken the time to talk to me today here in the Data for All podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you for the invitation.
Leon, you're working for the KielRegion here in Kiel, especially with the mobility life axis. Would you like to start by explaining to us what exactly the mobility life axis is all about?
Yes, I can start with that. The mobility life axis is an urban data hub or urban data platform that we started to build a couple of years ago in order to combine different data sources from the sector of mobility within one data hub, with the goal to make these data sources available for other stakeholders and being able to work with these data sources in general.
Yeah, perfect. And how has the MLA, short for Mobility Life Axis, developed over time? Did you collect a large amount of data right from the start before you started actively working with it? Or was it more of a process where you filled the platform with more data over time?
Yeah, it was definitely an ongoing process. We as the KielRegion, we operate different mobility services ourselves, like a bike sharing system, for example, also mobility stations, which combine different mobility options and public mobility, but also car sharing and so on. So we started from those mobility services mostly as we had the data. We were able to get the data from the bike sharing system or from these other mobility options, and we started from there and then looked more and more into what data sources were available also on the level of municipalities, started to get in contact and dig deeper and deeper to see what's already there. And then we also started to implement more and more data sources to just get a bigger and broader picture of the mobility in general.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we will come back to where exactly the data comes from in a second, but you're using an open source system. What was the argumentation for the open source?
Yeah, the urban data platform is based on open source components, and also the data models in which all the data is being processed is based on open standards, which is based on the intention that municipalities don't buy super expensive software and are then having the vendor lock-in effect. So they need to stick to one operator who can actually manage the platform, but they're very restricted and can't really handle things themselves as they are really dependent on this one company that operates the data hub. So in the sense of open source, the idea is to create something that works not for your municipality, but also for others. So you can share and combine resources and build something together that works for everyone, and in the end make it also a lot more affordable and more transparent in the direction that you walk forward to.
We'll get back to the interview shortly, but first a quick break with this episode's info box. Open source software offers cities an important opportunity to free themselves from dependence on individual providers, a common problem when procuring technology in the public sector. With vendor software, local authorities often end up in so-called vendor lock-ins. They are dependent on one provider, which makes switching expensive and complicated. Open source provides a solution here. The source code is openly accessible so that local authorities can test, customize, and further develop the software. This increases transparency, security, and independence. One example is Open Cities, which is used by cities such as Barcelona. When the original provider withdrew, the municipalities were able to continue running their systems independently without expensive conversions. Open source also enables collaboration. Cities can work together on software and share costs. When one city develops a new feature, others benefit directly. To summarize, with open source, cities go from being mere users to active designers of their digital infrastructure, and all in a cost-efficient, flexible, and independent manner. And with that, back to the conversation.
Yeah, perfect. You've already mentioned something like bike sharing. When we talk about mobility data, I feel most people think about traffic data, like on Google Maps. What types of mobility are included in the MLA?
Yeah, it's quite a broad range. If you look at cars, for example, we collect car data, so just measuring how many cars pass a certain point, classify the cars, so planners have a more accurate databases for city development. Or, for example, if you look at parking spots, we have parking sensors implemented, so we can see if right now in this moment a car is parked on top of that sensor, so we can play that information out to other applications and make it available. So in the end, the person that drives the car actually knows where he or she can park and where parking spots are available. Same goes for mobility services, such like the bike sharing system or micro-mobility, like the e-scooters. All the information about where and when these are available are within the data platform, and we share it. Or public transport is something where a lot of development is going on right now, that all the information about public transport is being shared via open data, so it's available for everyone. But it's processed within our data hub, so we can actually play it to the end user and show what buses and trains are on the way or if they have any delays. So we are able to process the real-time data for them. Yeah, these are some examples. Or just a really simple example, maybe a use case we're working on in Rendsburg at the moment is the status of the tunnel that goes underneath the Nord-Ostsee-Canal, which is a main struggle for people living there, as it's quite often locked and people can't pass. So just sharing the information, what the current status is already an improvement to what we had before.
It's actually a broad field of mobility data you're collecting from very different mobility ways of mobility. So how do you work together with different institutions or providers so that, for example, all this data is collected, and how do you coordinate the data flows so that everything in the end fits together on the platform?
Yeah, that's a good aspect. We have a lot of different stakeholders, whether they are from the city or the municipality, or they are companies who operate and run mobility options. So there's quite a broad range of stakeholders and also data sources and data users. And we we talk with everyone and we try to combine all that in the data hub. And in the end, it's all being boiled down to standardized data models, which process the data. So if you compare, for example, one traffic count system from one city to the one of another city, it might be different systems, but the way they are combined within the data hub, they are merged into the same data model. And therefore, being harmonized. And once they are published to the outside, it's much easier and more accessible than it was before.
I mean, you already mentioned so many stakeholders. So a project with so many data sources and stakeholders certainly brings with it some, let's say, challenges. What were or still are typical hurdles for you that you have to deal with? Were there more technical issues or organizational, legal, or even data protection related issues?
Yeah, pretty much everything that you mentioned, from the accessibility of the data. Yeah, normally you would want an IPA where you can access the data quite easily and just from the machine point of view, but sometimes the data is not available in this format, so you actually have to see how you get that information machine readable, and then you're able to actually work with it. So this is a problem sometimes, just making that data machine readable, but also, the licensing part, to actually being allowed to publish that data also on an open data license. And with that always comes the insecurity whether the data is violating any personal protection laws. So there's a lot of different aspects to take into consideration when actually implementing and sharing data sources. So it's definitely not that easy sometimes.
It seems pretty tricky to do that. So let's take a very practical look at the MLA. For example, how could the local resident in Kiel benefit from the processed mobility data? Are there like examples from everyday life where people say, okay, this is exactly where MLA brings a real added value to my, let's say, mobility life?
Yeah, we try to achieve that with an application that we built based on the information that's in the data hub, which we call Mobile Life. It's a web interface that displays all mobility services within reach of 300 meters around your current position, and accesses all those different programming interfaces which are lying in the data hub. For example, you get all that information of public transport, but also of micro mobility solutions such as bike sharing, e-scooters, car sharing, basically the whole sphere of mobility options that's available. You get it displayed in a very user-friendly way. Sometimes even with live positions, for example, the ferries that operate in Kiel and across the Kieler Förde. We started to implement just really basic API of their current geolocation. So users are actually able to see where that ferry currently is on the Kieler Förde. So we're working on these kind of projects to bring an improvement to the people out there. There are many other use cases, but this is just one example.
Within the Data for All project, you also try to look outside of one specific country or one specific region. So how compatible is the data that you process with the MLA with systems from, for example, other cities or regions? So if you imagine a Germany-wide or even Europe-wide networking of mobility data, how can your data from the MLA can be linked with European partners?
From a technical point of view, there should be no problem, because we, for example, use smart data models which come from a European context. So in Europe, there are other cities using the same standard and also the same fileware system that we are using. So with these cities, for example, it would be quite easy to work on similar use cases. So we can actually take what we develop and build here in Kiel on the region to another city in Spain or wherever it is and implement it there, and vice versa.
Just one question, is this already happening? Are you in contact with other communities or regions?
It's mostly happening in a German context with other smart city projects. Also here in Schleswig-Holstein, we have some quite close relationships to other smart city projects, and always look at the possibility to make a use case work not only here, but also in other regions or other cities, and then often get together in project groups, try to develop something together.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's actually the perfect timing to look at another use case, and very specific example now concerns you, Lasse. You're dealing with a very specific example. You're viewing data related to fan mobility. In the specific example of Kiel, a football club which is now unfortunately relegated to the second division. We were in first division 1 year ago.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. So thousands of people come to the stadium for a very short period of time. So just for maybe half a day, some hours. And everyone wants to get there as quickly as possible and ideally get home as easily as possible as well. So how does a big event like a football game connect to mobility data?
Yeah, I think our use case, the fan mobility use case, primarily deals with improving the traffic situation around the Holstein Stadium in Kiel on home match days. And yeah, as you already mentioned, the home match days represent a unique traffic situation because of 50,000 people want to reach a particular location in the city at what time. And this leads to an exceptional situation with increased coordination potential. On these home match days of Holstein Kiel, there's an above average number of fans, maybe around 40 to 50%, according to some results of past surveys. Yeah, there's a high number of fans use their cars to drive to the stadium, and this leads to emissions, traffic jam, parking pressure in the stadium area. Yeah, the aim is now to use digital or data-based solutions to make fans' arrival and departure behavior more efficient, more sustainable, and user-friendly. Yeah, furthermore, public and private transport option could be better coordinated and made easier to access by clearly showing the available mobility choices. And there the mobility data platform can be very useful.
I just remember one time I went to the stadium by bus. Normally I don't take the bus, and this line was literally always empty. Just on that day, it was full of people. So this shows how different the mobility is on such a day. But we have to go back to the past, because how did this use case in football come about in the first place? Was there a specific trigger or need that got you started with the use case?
Yeah, as I already mentioned before. And I have to add that this was actually before my time, before I took over the project. But as I already mentioned, there's a clear need to better the traffic situation around the stadium. And we also did some interviews with the football fans. And we asked them how they travel to or from the stadium and what their other needs, what are the problems, or what suggestions they have for improvement. And it turned out that they would like to have more parking facilities, more informations about better communication, about alternative travel options, or improved bus services and information on capacity utilization. Yeah, and this is why we saw a clear need to improve that.
Yeah, makes total sense. So maybe the same question which was for the MLA project. Where does this data come from? Are there like specific organizations or providers that provide you with the data of mobility, or do you collect them by yourself?
So at the moment, we don't have any valid data about the stadium yet. But the data platform has already linked a lot of data, and it's displayed there. But if you look at the area around the stadium in the data platform, you can see that there isn't much there yet. And we want to improve that by setting up or integrating new sensors or new data sources. So the data platform doesn't show any or just a few information in the stadium surroundings.
Yeah, I can imagine that football club like Holstein Kiel is also happy if the fans arrive there by time, and so they benefit from it. Is there any collaboration with the football club itself? Is there like some regular coordination when it comes to this fan mobility?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, we were in regular contact with the club Holstein Kiel. It emerged that Holstein Kiel itself only measures mobility behavior a few times a year via fan surveys. They also informed us that they require valid data to better understand traffic volumes. And in addition, we are planning to link the Mobile Live app which is linked with a mobility data platform to the Holstein Kiel app, which will give fans a better insight into the different mobility options they can use for getting to and from the stadium.
Yeah, maybe just one question for the future, because it could be very interesting if you in the future will be able to use the collected data to maybe better predict fan mobility for future matches. I think it could be interesting to see whether are there like recurring patterns, seasonal differences between winter and summer, or dependencies maybe also on the opponent that derive from the data?
Yeah, we hope so. So the overall databases for fan mobility is to be improved in order to be able to make well-founded database decisions for traffic management, maybe for the club itself, for the city of Kiel. And one way of achieving this is to install new measurement technology around the stadium. As I already mentioned, a lot of relevant data on fan mobility is currently not available or only available in isolated cases, and some measures of the stakeholders are often taken on the basis of experience rather than valid data. This was a result of our stakeholder interviews, like with the police and the mobility providers.
Do you know whether there is something similar for, let's say, other football clubs? Were you in contact with other providers from, I don't know, maybe Hamburg or Berlin or something? Do you know whether there's something similar when it comes to different football clubs?
So we had a look on some other clubs in Germany. How do they collect data or information to get more details for the fan travel behavior? And there was one case in Bayer Leverkusen. They collect the mobile data. I hope it's the right name for in English, the mobile data, so they can see how the fans get to the stadium, where are the areas which are full or overcrowded.
Yeah, I think I'm very looking forward to what extent it will be useful in the future, maybe also for the police, for the security services, and of course for the fans itself. So Leon, Lasse, thank you very much for this super interesting talk. I think I just hope that our listeners have learned quite a lot when it comes to mobility and also to fan mobility, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
And that was all for this episode. If you'd like to hear more, subscribe to Data for All, a quest for digital autonomy in the podcast app of your choice, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SoundCloud. And for any questions or suggestions, you can write to us at dataforall@boell-sh.de. The link is in the show notes.
Data for All. A quest for digital autonomy. A podcast from the Heinrich-Böll-Stiftung, Schleswig-Holstein.